Hello YouTube, my name is Derek, or Lycan101, and this is what I hope to be one of the first of many videos about role-playing. Today's video is going to be a video response to Sean Connor's, or The Outsider 68, questions for a DM. So let's get started. First question, how did you get involved in role-playing? Well, it was about, I guess it'd be a year, maybe a year and a half ago, while I was still in high school, that there was a couple of signs posted up around the campus that said Fantasy Role-Playing Club. So, of course, I had always had an interest in reading fantasy books, so I thought I'd go down and see what it was. So I got there. It wasn't too many people, maybe 3 or 4 guys, and they were simply playing Magic the Gathering. So I sat down, played a couple of games with them, and the club ended. And then I went to the teacher that was hosting and I said, look, I thought we were going to be doing more than just playing Magic the Gathering. What about Dungeons and Dragons? I'd never played myself, but I'd heard about it. So I figured, it's a fantasy game. Maybe we should be playing it. So we got a couple more people into the club the next week, and then they started, bringing their Dungeons and Dragons stuff, and we just got started playing, and, it's a lot of fun. I fell in love with it, so it's something that I keep doing. Question 2. How long have you been running games? I've been running games as a DM or a GM for 10, 11 months, almost the full time that I've been playing role-playing games. Question 3. What are your favorite systems to DM? I like fantasy, little science fiction. So I've DM'd Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition, 3.5, 4th edition, Pathfinder. I'm hoping to look into some new up-and-coming smaller markets for their settings and their systems. Question 4. How would you describe your DMing style? This is kind of a hard question. I guess I'd describe it as highly story-driven, but really involved and in-depth. I like to have a lot of story involvement, and the characters shape the world and make a lot of effort into the story, and just great set pieces, and basically create like a movie for them that is centered around them. Next question. What is your best quality as a DM? Best quality, that's kind of hard. I would have to say that my best quality as a DM would be getting my players involved and keeping them hooked. What I like to do is I always like to make sure that even though it's my story in the world that I created, I want them to be that driving force. I want them to be the forefront of the story. So I always try to provide background hooks or certain things that makes their character come alive and feel important. And ultimately it's their decisions that are shaping my story. So the next question is, what makes a great DM? I think what makes a great DM is making sure your players are involved and committed to your story. But at the same time, a DM also has to be able to think on their feet and just keep at it. A lot of people talk about DM burnout, but you have to find a way through it and really keep going at it. Take a break if you have to, let someone else DM, but don't give up on it. Fight your way through it and come back, and your players will like you all the more for it. Why do you DM? Well, I DM because I find it sometimes more interesting than being a player. Getting to get behind the screen and create the whole story is what really started me off as being a DM. I played for about a month as a player when I first started out, and I realized, why am I sitting here when I could be doing what that guy behind the screen is doing? What is going on back there? So I read up on the books and I figured it out, and I said, why can't I do this? So I started doing it and created my own setting, and still working on my own setting and all original content for the most part, and set out to it. So I DM because I find it more fun at times than being a player. What would your players say about you if they were here? Well, I can't speak for them all, but I would hope that they would say that I'm a fair DM and that when I provide them with a story, it's fun, engaging, and they feel like they are the centerpiece, that they are actually making decisions and the world feels alive, and I'm not just railroading them along in the story. What things irritate you as a DM about yourself or the hobby? Well, I can answer both of those. As a DM, what I find irritating about myself is that I can never stay focused on the current campaign. I'm always thinking about the next campaign or the next great idea. I've currently DM'd 2 campaigns within my setting, but I've already started planning out another 5. So it's just ideas that keep coming up, and I just start writing them out, and then I have to stop myself and go back to the current campaign. Now about the hobby I would have to say that there's not a lot of people that still want to do it, or the fact that it's not as well looked upon by other people that are first coming into the hobby. Now let me explain. I used to always think, myself included, before I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, that, it was the nerds or, the really geeky kind of people that were playing these games. And then I realized, no, they're not. These are just more people. They just like fantasy. I like fantasy. Everyone, for the most part, can say they like fantasy. And I realized that, that's a big stereotype that a lot of people have. And I think that needs to be broken down and gotten rid of, so that way people realize all the great people that are out there playing these games and having a good time. So what makes a great player? That's the next question. I think a great player really comes down to the fact that they come prepared, and that the fact that they're coming to you with a backstory, or they're coming to you and they're actively involved in your story. I want active players when I run a campaign. I want them to think when I provide them with a scenario, not just to go in and try to just hack and slash their way through the whole time. I want them to think about it and realize that any action that they take within the session will have ramifications to the whole world at times, and that way they really need to think about it. So that's what I think makes a great player. Lastly, what piece of advice could you give to any DM to help them with the hobby? It's kind of a difficult question. I would have to say, in order to help anybody who's an aspiring DM, just keep at it. Don't give up. If you get writer's block or DM block, take a break, but then come back to it. Read up on the rule books if you're a rules-heavy kind of person. If you can't come up with an idea, use an established adventure or setting. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Wizards of the Coast and Paizo Publishing, they all have great adventures. And then there's always the other adventures that are just online, waiting to be read and found. I found several just great adventures when I was searching through the web one day that I've incorporated into my own campaigns. And they just fit so well, and they just springboard your own ideas off, and you come up with great things and ideas. So those were the questions on, what makes me a DM, and this DM interview is a video response to Sean Connors. I'm Derek, and we'll talk to you guys later.